I was married for uh, almost 10 years, and on our 9-year anniversary, I discovered that my husband had taken his girlfriend to the British Virgin Islands. And when he was caught, I never saw him again. He never came home. And so the life that we had built, the home that we had built, was left for me to dismantle.
Have you ever felt something was wrong but couldn't explain it? Like the person you love was slowly chipping away at your sense of self?
We've been there. Different marriages, but to the same man, with the same toxic pattern. But God was still working.
We're Lizzie and Deana, women of faith, survivors, and truth tellers.
Surviving toxic relationships is for any woman stuck in confusion, healing after betrayal, or searching for her voice again.
You are not crazy.
You are deeply loved. Hey everybody, welcome to Surviving Toxic Relationships. I am super excited today to have Marcelle LeBlanc. And as a side note, this is the first time I have ever recorded without my sidekick, Lizzie. She is off doing some very important things today and just couldn't make it last minute, but she loves you guys and wants to know that she's bummed that she can't be here with us. Okay, so our special guest, Marcelle, she is known as the conversation architect because she believes that one honest conversation can change the course of a woman's life. Marcelle survived an unhealthy marriage, infidelity, and a very painful divorce. She spent more than a decade speaking with thousands of women through the multi-million-dollar business that she built. She discovered a common thread. Many women know something is wrong in their relationship long before they admit it, even to themselves. So today, Marcelle's mission is to help women find the courage to have the conversations that bring truth, clarity, and the confidence to choose a healthier path toward love, happiness, and alignment. So Marcelle, welcome. So happy you're here. And if you want to start by telling us your story, which I think is amazing, feel free.
Thank you so much. I'm great. I'm grateful to be here, and I'm sorry I'm missing Lizzie and getting to meet her. But my story is one of, I think, a long road of becoming a woman that can really identify as the person that she was meant to be. I was married for almost 10 years, and on our 9-year anniversary, I discovered that my husband had taken his girlfriend to the British Virgin Islands. And when he was caught, I never saw him again. He never came home. And so the life that we had built, the home that we had built, was left for me to dismantle, and that included the financial hardships and the debt that he had put me in. And so it took me a few days to get off the floor and figure out what I was going to do. And looking back with Velvet Box, I've spoken to thousands of women that were married, entangled, already disconnected. And I'm really passionate about helping these women. And what that forced me to do was go and find out why I was in the situation that I was in and why I did the things that I did. And I think that people, women especially, are never taught to think about what we want, and we get good at guessing what other people want. Honestly, as women, we treat our needs as selfish, and we need to replace all of those assumptions with information. And so I developed a model. I think the conversation and communication is one of the first places in figuring out who you want, who you are, and what you want is going to go ahead and set you on a path. It set me on a path of healing. It did not happen overnight, but it was a long, steady road.
Okay, so is this where the conversation architect was born?
Well, at first it was, I opened Velvet Box. It was a small chain of luxury lingerie and retail boutiques.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. Okay. Yes. It's been a while since I read your bio, but yes, the Velvet Box. Yes. That was an amazing thing. Like you built a really incredible, not just storefront for women, but also it ended up being a chain, right? With several stores. And it was actually like one of those that anybody wouldn't be embarrassed to walk into, to actually have things for your intimate needs, but catered to women, and that was brilliant.
So it's very education focused. And what I discovered over the years, talking to thousands of women, once they got comfortable talking to me and figuring out who I was, they would tell their stories. They'd become really vulnerable. And I was really honored to be able to have those conversations and hold that space for them. And women fell what I thought of was into two camps. They were women who knew what they wanted and they asked for it. And then there was a group of women that hoped that things would get better. And so those women were, including myself, managing resentment and disappointment and hurt and the quiet grief of not being seen. And so thinking about that, that's what got me on the path to conversation architect. Because I don't think we become stuck because we lack information. I think we stay stuck because the information that we're receiving, it threatens a story that we desperately want to be true, and we treat these concerns like evidence that we need to argue against rather than information that's worth exploring. And I absolutely love to see women who are thriving in their career and they've discovered a life partner they love, they're aligned with, they've fostered that common language. But what I find is a lot of these women do not treat the most important partnership that they're ever going to have, their spouse or their life partner, with the intention that they should. And a lot of these ladies, including myself, know that their relationship's on borrowed time and refuse to have that conversation that's going to deepen it or move it on to keep it and not keep it and keep it from being a painful mistake. And we lack that skill. No one teaches us that. No one teaches us. And that's what set me on the path for conversation architect.
I love that. So you have this wonderful product, well, multiple products. You have a whole store catered to women, which lets you have these conversations with these women and find out exactly what they need, which opens up more conversations. And then it leads you to this. And I truly believe 100% in what you're saying about how women really don't have those conversations with themselves. And I think sometimes it's because we don't really even know what we need to know, right? We don't know what we don't know. And so even if we start to realize that something's missing, we still don't know how to put that into conversation. So tell us more about this.
Well, a lot of times, by the time we get the courage to speak up, we take every disappointment and every hurt and we squeeze it out into one moment. And we may have been having this conversation in our head with our friends, with our therapist, on Google for years, and he's only been having it for the last 5 minutes. And so what this does is it makes a conversation that feels terrifying and it makes it doable. And the structure forces her to get clear on exactly what she needs to say, strip out all the rambling, and keep our emotions steady so we don't lose our point. And you learn how to say what happened without blame, say what it meant to you, and then ask for what you need in clear, direct language. And then allow him to respond to that. A lot of times we have conversations in our heads for years. I had a young lady that I was talking to, and she came to me and she's describing her relationship, and she uses the word slow death. And as we're talking, it sounds like they're strangers in the same house. They sit there and have dinner at night, each scrolling on Instagram. They have their own Netflix shows they like to watch. So, of course, they go to their separate rooms to watch their shows, not to disturb each other. And she even says, I go to bed early so I can avoid those awkward silences. And I just don't know what to do. And so as she's laying there, she's having these one-sided conversations, as we do, and thinks about breaking up. And that feels way too catastrophic to her. So on all the other nights and days she's convinced herself that it's normal and this is good enough and this is what everybody else is doing. And on our first call, I asked her, I said, what do you want? And she happened to know exactly what she wanted. She wanted more intimacy, connection, excitement. And the problem wasn't knowing what she wanted in this instance, but it was admitting to herself that without those things in her relationship, the resentment is going to start to set in and so would the distance between them. And so I asked her, I said, let's look to your 10-year self. What does 10-year Lauren look like? And she immediately started crying and says, I know I don't want to live like this, but I'm afraid. I don't know what to do. I'm afraid to just, wreck everything. And so we picked one thing that was really important to her that she didn't want to live without. And we crafted a conversation around just that one thing. And then when the big moment came to have this conversation, she was prepared, brought her notes. To her surprise, do you know what he said? He says, I felt it too. And that gave her so much confidence that she continued to be honest in their relationship. And it wasn't the conversation that fixed the entire relationship, but what it did do was crack that silence and end the secret suffering. And later she said, I thought I would be blowing us all up, but I was just needed to restart us, and I had to go first. Now, it doesn't always end like that, but you want to give yourself a real shot at being happy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it really does. And I agree with you. If you don't communicate with each other on where you guys are missing, there's a gap, right? You try to communicate, maybe he doesn't understand or he gets offended because the way it came out or vice versa. And so there's this huge communication gap, and you can't fix anything without communication. So yeah, it makes complete sense.
And you want to start small, and you want to have the conversation when it's still just one conversation. We all are aware of when we've had these instances where we use the words you always and you never. And that tends to become more of a character assassination, and it kind of all goes downhill from there. And so if you follow the steps, I'll give you an example of what a successful conversation looks like. Your husband is supposed to mow the lawn every Wednesday when he gets home from work, and he gets distracted. He gets playing in his garage, tinkering with the motorcycle or something like that. Before you know it, the lawn does not get mowed, and you have to ask him to mow the lawn. And and a lot of times, sometimes we get very disgruntled. We don't say anything. There's some passive aggressiveness. But what a successful conversation would look like would be, hey, Robert, you didn't mow the lawn this Wednesday, and it's your job to do it every Wednesday. And when I have to remind you, I feel like I'm going into parenting mode. And when I have to do that, then it affects where my headspace is on date night. And I'm really frustrated with you, and I'm not in the mindset that you would like me to be on date night. So since you agreed to this, can you just set an alarm so I don't have to be the one to ask you to go ahead and do it? And
I like that. You're incentivizing him with, hey, date night's going to be a lot better.
well, but the impact, I bet you that he didn't know that the impact of you feeling like you have to get into mom mode or parenting mode. So if you say that and you say it, and you continue to have these things, it's the same conversation for what you're going to do with big money expenses, or please take your phone off the table while we're having dinner. It's the same thing.
Yeah. And so do you really believe, Marcelle, that there's just the right way to say the right thing?
I think that there's a definitely a way to say it. And I think I'm kind of a country girl. So I was thinking about this earlier. And when we set a fence post, we dig the hole and we drop the post in there. And the post is really loose. You can't string any wire to it. You can't hang anything onto it. But as we build this skill of knowing what we want and speaking up on a regular basis and starting small and becoming that person, that is like putting in the dirt in the cement, and it becomes steadier and it becomes stronger. And so eventually that post is so steady, that post is you can hang the wire on it, you can hang whatever you want on it, and it's going to stay there and it's going to support you. So the wire and all the things that are on it, it could be your family, it could be your job, all of that stuff. And so if you work on these skills of knowing what you want, being aware of when you start to feel something is a little bit off, having that conversation while it's still one conversation. And you don't need to hire me for this. I have all these tools on my website on how to go ahead and have the critical conversation. It walks you through the steps. You can see it right there, onekeyconversation.com/growth. And you can download it and walk yourself through it. maybe even do it with a friend. That might be a whole lot of fun, where you go ahead and have the conversation and you go back and forth and listen to each other and see and give yourself feedback on how that sounds.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. I like it. I don't think I've ever seen a program or any kind of tools to help you communicate more effectively. Just like this, in this type of simplicity. It's nice. So, how do you help your clients, Marcel, that are in a toxic relationship where communication can get especially confusing and especially terrifying? And what that looks like is, instead of being able to have a normal conversation and have that person receive it and understand it, as long as it's communicated effectively, that person tends to get very defensive. They overreact. So are there tips that can help them more specific to those types of environments?
Especially if you might invoke that type of reaction. So I think it's really important that you prepare. Even if you have to write notes down and you sit down with your partner and say, this means a lot to me. I want to get it right. I want to make sure that I say because we tend to get kind of nervous. Now, I don't know that we can be responsible for how the other person reacts or what they're going to do, but I think that that's valuable information.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Just nice basic skill sets. Yeah. And I like the idea of writing it down. I think that's a good idea. Even if it makes you feel a little like, I'm reading this from a piece of paper. Well, at least that person knows that you're really trying to get your thoughts out clearly, say what you mean, and keep the emotion out of it. Imagine that's like
Well,
a really good thing to do.
we can be brave and by the time we have the conversation, but then to have the conversation, but then when the time comes, the last trap is the vulnerability part of it. Now we're about to
Mhm.
put ourselves out there, and it feels scary. It feels bigger than we are, and then we're being very vulnerable when we say what we want.
Mhm.
And so when we do that, we have to be able to keep our emotions steady, our thoughts steady, and be really clear and articulate about it. And so that's where I absolutely believe in notes and planning it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It makes sense. Even in a toxic relationship, like just having that clarity. Yeah. Well, tell me about some more situations that this conversation architect could help.
Well, I think in a lot of scenarios, a lot of times, I'll tell you, one of my most memorable stories is from Velvet Box. We used to have these lectures in the stores, and we have about 60 people. The therapist is teaching something. In this particular time, she was teaching a course, and she gave everybody a piece of paper, and it was a little stick figure of a person, and she gave them crayons. It was a red, a yellow, and a green. And the red crayon, you marked where you didn't like to be touched, green where you like to be touched, yellow where it's neutral. So I was walking around and I heard this gentleman say, "Oh my God." So it caught my attention and I turned around and I kind of meandered over there to see what was going on. And he says, "You never told me." He says, "We have been married 24 years." And so they had switched papers, and the ears were all red on her paper. And it wasn't the ears that really captured my attention, but it was the 24 years that she never said anything. And clearly there was lots of love there. He loved his wife. But she, for whatever reason, I don't know why she didn't tell him. What was it? The lack of language? Was it the lack of confidence? But I think about if she could have said something, what those 24 years might have looked like a little bit differently. And that's the things that you just start small. Like, I need you to put your phone away at the table. I need you to mow the lawn. I need you, because if we take these little disgruntlements and disappointments and we say something, the feeling just kind of dissipates and goes away, as if you take care of it and maintain it on a regular basis. But if you leave it, and then I would imagine that she probably didn't think that swapping that paper like that and putting that crayon, she might not have thought, like, this is the moment I want to tell him that for 24 years I've been doing something that I don't want to do. If that makes sense. And I just thought I felt for her. I felt for both of them. There clearly lots of love there.
Mm-hmm.
And but there was no language for that situation.
Yeah, I'm sure there are multiple. I wish we had an audience to ask questions to right now, because I'm sure there are multiple reasons why people wouldn't want to speak up, even to a loving partner. I mean, I totally understand why they don't want to speak up to a toxic partner, because you pay every time you speak up at all about any of your needs or anything you would like, or anything that would, even anything that make you happy. You generally pay for that in one way or another, or later they throw it in your face, or later they purposely withhold it because now they know that you need it. But in a loving relationship, which I'm in right now, thank God, now for over a decade, found the most amazing man. But I understand that, because I feel like you want to make them happy. And especially if you're a pleaser type, you want them to be happy and you want them to feel like they're doing it right, they're getting it right, and they're making you happy. And I think too, on a male female relationship, I think men can have a little bit of a fragile ego when it comes to intimacy in the bedroom. And so I think women kind of perceive that. And then if you say, I don't like that, it can be kind of hurtful. Or maybe it just feels hurtful to the person saying it.
Mm.
But I think intimacy, and it's cool that you've spent so many years in this arena, because it is a very untapped area, that should be talked about a lot more. With women, with couples, it shouldn't be taboo in any way. It's just one of the most important forms of expression, of healthy expression of love, and extremely vital to a healthy relationship. I just wish that couples would do this at the very beginning of their relationship, because I could totally see that. I could see going a decade and just being like, no, you're just amazing. You do everything well. I love it. So anyway.
Well, and that would be the prime example of why you would start on something like the lawn. You would start
Yeah.
about,
Yeah, there
I
you
mean,
go.
that's where you start. You start small, and you start to build. You don't want to go and make these life-changing decisions. Women are, these are not women that would describe themselves as hopeful. They would describe themselves as, like you said, considerate, kind. They're being human.
Mhm.
And they're incredibly strong women. These are women that are negotiating 6 and 7 figure salaries and deals. They're running companies. They're writing major real estate contracts. And then they don't have the language for speaking to their partner. And, or even, I'll go back even further, is like deciding what you want. I inherited my family's values. When I got married, my dad, we were living together, and Catholic, and he's like, you're living in sin, you have to get married.
Mhm.
And then he proposed. And then it felt, I wasn't sure I wanted to get married, but then the momentum of things started going, and it was too much. It felt too much to change and say something else. So I just continued to go with it. So I wanted to be a good daughter. I wanted to be a good wife. I wanted to be a good student. And I remember talking to my parents about it when I wasn't happy, and they didn't have the help for me. They just said, my mom's like, that's just what it is. I mean, that's normal. And so I thought it was normal. I was crying in the bathroom when I called her, and I'm like, oh man, well, maybe this is what being a grown-up is. My dad's like, we get married, we stay married until we die. That's how we do it. That's what happens. And so I didn't even know to think about what I wanted, what life might look like for me. I went through my marriage where he decided what that was going to look like, and he was modeling his father. His father made all the decisions in their family. And so he made all the decisions, and I saw that he overspent, and I didn't feel it was my place to say anything. I didn't know how to say anything. And by the time you say anything, then it's going to be a big disaster. It's going to turn into a fight, because I was using the words all and never. You always do this and you never do that. And looking back, I could see how it wasn't successful, or it could never be successful when I brought these things up. So yeah, I mean, there was a whole lot there that I didn't have the tools for at the time.
Yeah, I completely understand that. And it's amazing how you took all of that. And I mean, you were handed a disaster, really. I mean, in 1 minute, you didn't have a husband. He had probably a new partner, that you knew at that time. And then the house and the debts and everything else. So he took care of everything until 1 minute. and then he didn't take care of anything, and then you were left in charge of all of it. But it sounds like that's exactly the catalyst that made you who you are today and forced you to just go deeper and find yourself and your passion and what you're great at. So it's funny how sometimes those biggest disasters in our lives can turn around and be the most incredible catalyst for good.
Well, my favorite saying is good thing, bad thing, who knows? And given enough time, I look back and it was a catalyst for the life that I have now. I love my life and I love my company and I love helping people, and I've traveled all over the world and I have some wonderful horses and that I could talk about forever, and that stuff would have come if I would not have gone through that. And the cheating at the end and being left with all of that was just that was the explosion at the end. The biggest loss was the 10 years that I spent kind of wandering around in a relationship that I wasn't really happy with, or knowing what I wanted, trying to live somebody else's dreams, fulfill somebody else's standards. And if anybody takes anything away today, the second best time to start working on yourself is now.
I love that. If you can't do it early on, do it now. And no matter what environment you're in, you know, whether you're in a healthy relationship, toxic relationship, no relationship, always continue working on yourself, because you really just don't know what you don't know and what you need until you start digging in there and pursuing growth. So Marcelle, thank you so much for today. I really appreciate your story. I love what you've made out of your life. It's really inspirational. It's really incredible. And I know that women all over are going to love this. So tell us where we can find you. And as always, everybody out there, we will have her information, her contact info in the links in the description on all of the sites that we're on. So tell us how to find you.
You can go to onekeyconversation.com and you can get all of the tools on there. If you go to onekeyconversation.com/growth, it'll walk you through all the steps on how to have this type of successful conversation. And I am really grateful for you having me, and it was very nice meeting you and talking to you today.
Yeah, absolutely, Marcelle. Thank you so much for being here.
Welcome.